Iranian missiles are slamming into Saudi oil refineries and Shafabi the Suffenschine the right now. And the entire Middle East is standing on the edge of a historic explosion. As you watch this, thick smoke is rising over Ras Tanura, Sai, Yansao, one of the most strategically important oil hubs on Earth. Drones are being intercepted above Riyadh. Emergency defense batteries are firing across the kingdom. Saudi Arabia has already expelled Iranian diplomats. And behind closed doors, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is reportedly in direct contact with Donald Trump, urging Washington not to contain Tehran this time, but to finish the threat permanently. This is no warning shot. This is no drill. This is April 2026. And the Saudi-Iran rivalry that has shaped the Middle East for nearly half a century has now erupted into the exact nightmare scenario global analysts feared for years. But if you want to understand why Saudi oil facilities are burning, why Gulf airspace is under missile threat, and why global oil prices could skyrocket next, you cannot begin with today's breaking news. You have to go back to the origin. Because this war did not begin with missiles. It began with a revolution. And every proxy war, every sectarian clash, every diplomatic betrayal, every nuclear red line, and every failed ceasefire since then has been building toward this exact moment. Welcome to BCC News. If you want the real story behind the Middle East crisis, Iran versus Saudi Arabia, oil shock risks, Strait of Hormuz threats, and the global consequences ahead, stay with us until the end. And if you're new here, subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell because this crisis is moving by the hour and BCC News will cover every major development. Before 1979, Iran and Saudi Arabia were rivals, but it was still a rivalry that could be managed. Both stood broadly on the same side of American Gulf strategy. Iran under the Shah was a close U.S. ally. Saudi Arabia was Washington's cornerstone partner in the Arab world. Yes, they competed for influence, prestige, oil leverage, and regional leadership, but it was not yet existential. Neither side believed the other wanted to replace its entire system. Then came Stan Fame Dain Souring and the entire Middle East power structure changed overnight. The Iranian Revolution did not simply replace one ruler with another. It transformed Iran from a traditional nation-state into an ideological force. Tehran no longer saw itself as merely defending borders. Its leadership saw its revolution as a model meant to spread beyond Iran's frontiers and reshape the region itself. From Riyadh's perspective, this was a direct threat to the kingdom's legitimacy. Saudi Arabia was not just another state. It was the guardian of Sunni Islam, home to Mecca and Medina and the symbolic center of the Islamic world. Now Iran was stepping forward as the self-declared voice of Shia power across the Middle East. What had once been strategic rivalry turned into an ideological struggle for regional dominance. And from that point onward, the Sunni-Shia divide became more than theology. It became a geopolitical weapon. And once both sides began to see the stakes as existential, the rules changed forever. The first major eruption came in 1980. The Iran-Iraq War transformed Iraq under Saddam Hussein into the front line against revolutionary Iran. Saudi Arabia backed Iraq, not because Riyadh trusted Saddam, but because containing Iran had become the overriding strategic objective. For Tehran, this changed the rivalry permanently. Saudi Arabia was no longer a distant competitor. It had become an active sponsor of Iran's enemies. At the same time, oil turned into a pressure weapon. Saudi Arabia's ability to adjust production and influence global prices gave it enormous leverage. Iran, exhausted by war and isolation, could not match that flexibility. Military attrition on one side, economic strangulation on the other. The rivalry deepened. Then came one of the most emotionally explosive moments in the entire conflict. In 1987, during Hajj in Mecca, clashes erupted between Iranian pilgrims and Saudi security forces. More than 400 pilgrims were killed, most of them Iranian. What should have been a sacred pilgrimage became a regional trauma. Embassies were attacked. The diplomatic relations collapsed. Public fury exploded on both sides. From that moment, this was no longer just geopolitics. It had entered religion, identity, and public memory. And that kind of wound lasts for generations. The 1990s briefly created the illusion of calm. Security agreements, diplomatic visits, and limited normalization gave the impression that tensions were easing. But the underlying strategic competition never disappeared. It was only waiting. Then 2003 changed everything again. The U.S. invasion of Iraq removed Saddam Hussein, the single largest Arab buffer blocking Iranian expansion. What followed reshaped the balance of power. A Shia-led government emerged in Baghdad. Iran moved rapidly through militias, political alliances, and economic influence. From Riyadh's perspective, this was a strategic nightmare. Iran now appeared to be building a continuous sphere of influence stretching through Iraq, Syria, and into Lebanon. What many analysts later called the Shirfiwi fi Dagnar Hagior Chir in Nar Shia Crescent. This was the moment the rivalry became impossible to hide. It entered its most dangerous phase, Bisti, Dari Dachi, and the proxy warfare. Iran developed what became known as the Axe-Excrasi Forestry Udams axis of resistance. A network of allied militias and political movements across the region. Instead of deploying conventional armies, Tehran used missiles, drones, funding, training, and local proxy groups. Low cost, high impact. Maximum deniability. Saudi Arabia responded by tightening its military alignment with Washington. U.S. troops were stationed on Saudi soil. Major defense deals crossed $100 billion. Advanced missile shields, fighter jets, radar systems, and heavy armor flowed into the kingdom. Quietly, another strategic alignment emerged. Israel and Saudi Arabia, despite no formal alliance, found themselves increasingly united by one shared concern, and Iran. Back-channel intelligence cooperation reportedly expanded around Hezbollah, missile programs, and Tehran's nuclear progress. And that brings us to the issue sitting at the center of everything: Iran's nuclear program. Tehran has long insisted its nuclear activity is peaceful, focused on power generation and medical use. But outside Iran, skepticism never faded. By the early 2000s, discoveries around facilities like Natanz intensified fears that Iran was moving closer to weapons capability. The 2015 nuclear agreement brought temporary relief. Sanctions eased. Enrichment slowed. Inspections increased. But in Riyadh, confidence in the deal was always fragile. Saudi leaders saw it as a pause, not a permanent solution. When the agreement collapsed in 2018, Iran accelerated again. Enrichment reportedly climbed toward 60% purity, alarmingly close to weapons-grade levels. By the early 2020s, breakout timelines had shrunk dramatically. For Saudi Arabia, a nuclear-capable Iran was unacceptable, because nuclear protection would not just shield Tehran, it would embolden every aligned militia and proxy force across the region. That is why Mohammed bin Salman made the kingdom's position crystal clear. If Iran gets the bomb, Saudi Arabia will move for one too. Then came the military escalation that changed the regional equation again. In 2025, Israel, reportedly with U.S. backing, moved beyond covert operations and launched direct strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure. Natanz was hit. Fordo's underground halls were targeted with bunker busters. Sites near Isfahan were struck. The program was damaged, but not destroyed. Iran dispersed infrastructure, hardened facilities, and preserved enriched stockpiles. So the nightmare was delayed, not eliminated. And now Yemen became the southern battlefield. Iran's backing of the Houthis transformed Saudi Arabia's border into a live missile front. By 2019, the Abqaiq and Quraysh attacks proved how vulnerable Saudi energy infrastructure truly was. Oil output plunged by 5.7 million barrels per day. Global oil prices surged instantly. Markets around the world were shaken. The message was unmistakable. A single strike in Saudi Arabia can move prices in every country on earth. Syria became another devastating front. Iran backed Bashar al-Assad. Saudi Arabia supported opposing rebel networks. Hezbollah fighters entered the war. Cities collapsed. Hundreds of thousands died. The rivalry was now burning through entire nations. Then came the 2023 China-brokered détente. Diplomatic ties reopened. Embassies resumed operations. The tone softened. But the deepest issues, Yemen militias, nuclear escalation, and regional dominance, remained unresolved. The handshake bought time. It did not solve the war beneath the diplomacy. And now we arrive at the present crisis in 2026. After the February strikes that killed Ali Khamenei, Iran's retaliation shattered every previous red line. For the first time, ballistic missiles and drone swarms targeted Meiru Kangfri Yaobi. Every Gulf Cooperation Council state simultaneously. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, the UAE, Oman. And now, Ras Tanura is under attack while Saudi air defenses are intercepting missiles over refineries. U.S. aircraft at Prince Sultan Air Base have reportedly been damaged. Multiple servicemen were wounded. Iran's new leadership under Mojtaba Khamenei is attempting to consolidate power while the country absorbs one of the largest sustained bombing campaigns in its history. At the same time, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 transformation now faces its greatest external threat: energy security, foreign investment, shipping stability, regional diplomacy. All of it is under pressure. And this is why the world should care. Because a missile that hits Saudi oil infrastructure does not remain a regional story. It moves directly into global oil prices. King's Kumi shipping insurance. Cheng's a Kadisi and down supply chains. Cheng's down Saingane Hansik's concert airline fuel costs. Suzite Angchum Sao and Suzati, which use food transportation. Inflation worldwide. This is no longer just a Middle East conflict. This is a global economic shockwave in motion. Now the question is, what comes next? A ceasefire? A wider Gulf War? A Houthi escalation in Bab el-Mandeb? A Strait of Hormuz disruption? Internal instability inside Iran? Or a complete redrawing of Middle Eastern power structures? Every path ahead carries global consequences. And that is why this moment may become the most important Middle East turning point since 1979. The rivalry that shaped generations is no longer operating in the shadows. It is now unfolding in open missile fire, burning refineries, disrupted trade routes, and a direct challenge to the global energy system. And what happens next could redefine not just the Middle East, but the world economy itself. And if you found this deep analysis valuable, hit like, share this video, and subscribe to BCC News right now. Saying now, because this crisis is moving fast, and we'll keep bringing you the latest war updates, oil market shock analysis, Gulf security developments, Iran military news, and Middle East geopolitical breakdowns every week. Stay with BCC News because the next strike could change everything.